Are you ready? You think you could tell us what to do? You think you could tell us what to wear? You think that you're better? Well, you better get ready. Bow to the masters. Break it down!
Hi, welcome to the Straight Lions Talk podcast, off-season edition, your Detroit Lions information center for everything happening Detroit Lions football. As usual, talking Detroit Lions football, but it's draft month. Like we talked about last week, April's here, it's draft month. Couldn't be more excited. Today, all we're talking is NFL draft. Our 4.0 edition mock draft is coming out April 18th, but by listening to the show, you're going to get the first 4 rounds today. We're going to break down the first 4 rounds, 1 through 4, and the players we like for the Detroit Lions, the players we believe they should select, how we think this draft is going to go for them, why, and the players we'd like the Lions to stay away from. But first, we'd like to thank everybody out there for joining the show. We really appreciate everybody who followed us this week. We had about 30 new followers. Great. Thank you for everybody that followed us last week. We really appreciate it. And if you guys want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter. That's the easiest place to go to, at STR Lions Talk Podcast. You can follow us on Vine, Instagram. If you want to listen to us, you can listen to us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Stitcher. You can listen to us on iTunes. Those are all avenues you guys can find our show, and we really appreciate everybody who has been supporting the show, telling people about the show. The response has been great. We've had our best 2 weeks combined for podcast numbers. We've had about 210 to 230 in that range the last 2 weeks, and that's because of you guys listening to the show and getting the show out to people. We really appreciate it. So as usual, guys, if you could just keep sending the show out to all your friends, family, Lions fans, co-workers, whatever. You can listen to it while you mow the yard. Spring's here. Home projects, driving in the car, going to work, going to ball games, whatever it is, you can listen to it there, and you can always find us at STR Lions Talk Podcast on Twitter, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Vine, Instagram, whole lot of different avenues to find us. Whatever your social media format is or whatever particular listening device you like to use, if it's Android, iPhones, whatever it is, just go to one of those 3 places to listen to our show. Please give us a rating. I don't always leave ratings. I should be better about that because I request you guys to do it. But please give us a rating. That way when someone's typing in Detroit Lions, it pops up Straight Lions Talk Podcast as the #1 search site and the #1 rated site on YouTube, Stitcher, YouTube, Stitcher, and iTunes. So if you guys could do that, that would be great. We've had 4 new ratings last week, so it's working. We appreciate it. If you like the show, tell us. If you don't like the show, tell us. We want to know either way. We like the back and forth. We like the criticism. That only allows us to get better. But like I said, it's draft month. Not a lot of Detroit Lions news going on. The Detroit Lions have been quiet leading into the draft, as usual. Most teams are. But what is Bob Quinn going to do in the draft? Why do so many people like the NFL draft? I know I like it because, as guys in general, and even some women, we like to build things. We like to create things, and we like to think about the possibilities. If we do this, if we do that, if we put that here, if we do this here, it could look like this. And I think that's the intriguing part of the NFL draft is you imagine the Detroit Lions, what they could be with the pieces. If the pieces fall right in the draft, if this guy falls into the second round and we're able to pick him up, if this guy's available in the third round, we could nab him and steal him and he'd fit perfect into our scheme. He'd fit perfect on our team. He'd fit perfect in the rotation. I think that's the lure to the NFL draft for all fans. I know it is for me. Start thinking about the possibilities. We get this guy, we could be so much better in a position we were weak at last year. This would help Matthew Stafford. This would help the receiving core. This would help the defense become elite by getting this player. The possibilities, start making your mind imagine the possibilities and how good the Detroit Lions could be overnight. And make no mistake about it. This team will be built through the draft. I've said it 1,000 times on this show. This team, under Bob Quinn, will be built through the draft. We said it when the day he was hired. You can go back and listen to our podcast to prove it. This team will be built through the draft. The core of this team will be built through the draft. We will acquire key free agents the same way the Patriots did. And I'm not saying Bob Quinn is going to copy everything the Patriots did. He's come out and said that, and we have said that from day one. He's going to have some different methodologies he's going to use to design and build the Detroit Lions in the way he believes a football team should be built. But there's going to be some core principles he takes from New England and brings to Detroit. And that's going to be building the core of this team through the draft. What's the core of the team? About 12 guys, maybe 8, depending on the year and the players available to us. The Detroit Lions are going to acquire key free agents when the time is right. That's going to date back to like the Patriots when they acquired Corey Dillon, when they acquired Rodney Harrison, when they acquired Darrelle Revis, Brandon Browner. That is when the Detroit Lions will strike when they think they're close to a championship. Junior Seau, guys like that, Randy Moss. That's when the Detroit Lions will strike, when the core of this team is built and they only need a piece here and a piece there to make the difference in winning and losing in the playoffs. Not the regular season, in the playoffs. Another thing the Detroit Lions will be focusing on solely is winning their division. That's going to be the first goal of every year, is to win the division. Because if you win the division, you're automatically in the playoffs. It gives you hope to be a first round or a home team. You get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. You get week 1 bye. That's going to be the main focal point and the main goal of the Detroit Lions every year. We're going to focus on the draft. Bob Quinn is preparing for this draft along with the 2017 draft. Make no mistake about it. The Lions will more than likely, prediction of the week, more than likely walk out of this draft with picks for next season. You can expect the Detroit Lions, we've said this 100 times on this show, to have an average of 10 picks per year. We have 10 this year. You can expect the Lions to make some moves. They're going to be pretty active, but I think we're going to be more trade back team than trade up team. There might be certain situations that we trade up, but I doubt early on we're trade up team in the first round. We're going to be more trade back team. Now, we might trade back into the second round. Maybe we trade back into the first round, but I don't see us trading into the first round. I could see us trading back into the second round because a lot of the main value of this draft is in round 2, and I think Bob Quinn knows that. Another thing, Detroit Lions fans, you can expect Bob Quinn to have a value on every pick. And I understand Martin Mayhew probably did, and I understand Xander's probably did when he was there. You can expect the Detroit Lions and Bob Quinn to have a value on pick 16. I believe, totally speculating, that the Detroit Lions are going to narrow this down to 2 or 3 players that are worthy of the 16th pick. And if those 2 or 3 players are not available when it comes time for them to draft at 16, they will not make that selection. They will make that selection only if the value is there. If the value is not there, they will look to trade back and recoup that value with draft picks, a possible player, draft picks for next year, and certain rounds this year. It's going to be a value-based team where everything has a set value, just like we saw in free agency. The Detroit Lions were very heavy in certain areas in free agency. They were very heavy in secondary help. Why? Because this league has become a nickel-based league. 60% of all plays are run out of the nickel. It's up 20% from 5 years ago. That's why you've seen Jonathan Batamosi. That's why you've seen Wilson. That's why you've seen Bush. That's why you've seen all these secondary guys come in, and you can expect the Detroit Lions to make some secondary acquisitions in this draft. Why? It's a nickel-based league. The Detroit Lions are going to play a flexible defense. Scouting player profiles are going to change. Draft profiles are going to change under Bob Quinn. We're going to look a little more Patriots than we did Detroit Lions last year. Bob Quinn has put coaches in positions to help Jim Caldwell The coaching staff has been all but revamped. The scouting staff has been all but revamped. And you can expect there to be some different looks and some different ways and some different methodologies on how we draft players coming into the 2016 draft. So let's kick it off with pick 16. We, on our new 4.0 mock draft, had the Detroit Lions. If their core players are not there, at 16, we believe the Detroit Lions will be targeting 3 players. I believe it's going to be Ronnie Stanley. I believe it's going to be Sheldon Rankins, possibly Andrew Billings. And I think Ezekiel Elliott trumps all of that. And here's my Ezekiel Elliott rant. The Detroit Lions would be fools not to draft Ezekiel Elliott if he's available at 16. I think there is no way, shape, or form he is there at 16, so we don't have to worry about it. But make no mistake about it. If Ezekiel Elliott's there at Ezekiel Elliott, Ohio State running back, is there at 16, our number 1 pick here at Straight Lions Talk is Ezekiel Elliott. He's the best player in this draft. And if he's there at 16, you run to the podium for Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think he will be there. We won't go into why we think he's the best player in the draft. We won't go into why I think he's such a great fit for the Detroit Lions. Use your imagination, and you know why he would be such a great fit for the Detroit Lions. But the way we see this going, if those 3 players we mentioned, Sheldon Rankins, Ronnie Stanley, or Andrew Billings, are not there at 16 for the Detroit Lions, I believe the Detroit Lions should trade back and select offensive tackle Jason Spriggs. And I wouldn't have a problem with the Detroit Lions selecting Jason Spriggs, offensive tackle from Indiana, with the 16th pick if they decide to do that. I don't think his value's at 16. I believe his value's more in the 20 range. And I believe the Detroit Lions are in a position at 16 where teams may want to trade up to take a quarterback if quarterbacks start to fall and they start to go. If Wentz and Goff, which I don't agree are the 2 best quarterbacks, but they should be the first 2 taken off the board, quarterback-wise, if they're gone, teams might start panicking and want to trade up. The Lions are in a perfect position to sit at 16 and let the phone calls come in when Connor Cook and Paxton Lynch are there, possibly Hackenberg, which, whatever. That would allow the Lions to trade back, and I believe the value for Jason Spriggs is in between the 22 and 26 pick of the NFL draft. Drafting Jason Spriggs is not where we have said we want the Detroit Lions to go in our previous mock drafts. We were all about Sheldon Rankins. He is our number 1 defensive player and our number 1 player we think might and could possibly be available for the Detroit Lions at the 16 spot. And we said for months we think Sheldon Rankins is going to be the pick. And I believe the pick will be on the line, whether it's defense or offensive line. But after going to the Notre Dame Pro Day, I believe it's going to be on the offensive line, the way they were just walking around and following Ronnie Stanley thoroughly throughout that process at the Pro Day. Bob Quinn followed him around from drill to drill. The offensive line coach for the Detroit Lions, Ron Prince, ran all the drills for the Detroit Lions at the Notre Dame Pro Day and paid a lot of attention to Ronnie Stanley. And I believe the Detroit Lions think Ronnie Stanley could slip, and they want to be ready to take Stanley at 16. I personally don't like Stanley as much as everybody else. I personally think Jason Spriggs is a better tackle than him. He's more athletic, and I think there's more upside to his game going forward than there is Ronnie Stanley. But if Ronnie Stanley's the pick, I wouldn't have a problem with it. Like we said before, we said it for months, we really, really like Sheldon Rankins. I think he's going to be the pick defensive line-wise for the Detroit Lions if he's available, if they decide to go that route, if the value is there for the pick. I think Sheldon Rankins has a higher value at 16 than Jason Spriggs. But the Detroit Lions more than likely will take offensive line. And it's an area of need for the Detroit Lions. It will help Matthew Stafford, it will help the running game, and it will finally solidify that right side for years to come if if Jason Spriggs is not able to switch to the left side and take over for Riley Reif, because we don't know where Riley Reif's going to be next year. He's on the last year of his contract. Will the Detroit Lions extend him this season? Will the Detroit Lions keep him next season? Or will they let Jason Spriggs play the right side and move over to the left side if Riley Reef leaves? Now, let's just hypothetically think if Jason Spriggs would not work out on the left side. That would be a hole for the Detroit Lions. But if they're able to sign Riley Reef, worst case scenario, and I know people cringe, but guys, he was one of the best tackles in the NFC last year. Like it or not, he was. Let's say they sign Riley Reef, hypothetically, and Jason Spriggs is our right tackle for the next 10 years. At worst, we drafted a right tackle, a position of need for the Detroit Lions, along an offensive line that's very young, and I'm not advocating offensive line for the Detroit Lions because I think their offensive line's too young to draft more young offensive linemen that need work and development with Laken Tomlinson, Larry Warford, Travis Swanson. I think they need more of a veteran presence over there. That's why we've said for months we think it's going to be Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle, Louisville, the number 1 pick, 16 overall for the Detroit Lions. And ultimately that's our favorite player. But we believe that Rankins possibly may not be there. If he's there, he won't last till 18. He'll be gone. Because I believe the Lions will take him, teams behind us will draft him, and I don't think he'll be there very long. Now, the reason we picked Jason Spriggs is because of the fact that we believe the Detroit Lions will trade back. I believe maybe someone like Denver may trade up into that pick. If the Browns do not take one of the top 2 quarterbacks, supposedly Jared Goff or Wentz, then I believe maybe Cleveland could be a player with some of the picks they acquire by trading back. There's rumors of that. Or they could take some of those picks and trade back up into 16 to take a Connor Cook, to take a Paxton Lynch, instead of drafting Goff or Wentz with that number 2 pick. So a lot of hypotheticals here, but what we think and we believe the Detroit Lions are going to do, and what would not be a bad pick for the Detroit Lions, we like Jason Spriggs, offensive tackle, Indiana, not at 16, but if the Lions are capable of trading back and taking him somewhere between 22 and 26. If we have to draft at 16 and Sheldon Rankins is there, we believe Sheldon Rankins should be the pick for the Detroit Lions, number 1 overall at 16, not Jason Spriggs. I don't believe the value's there, but if Sheldon Rankins is gone, Ronnie Stanley's gone, and Billings are gone, then I believe the Detroit Lions at 16, if there's no suitors for the pick and they take Jason Spriggs, I would not be upset about it. I think it would be a good fit for the Detroit Lions. He's kind of in that Nate Solder role. He's athletic like that. And I think that would be a good positional get for the Detroit Lions going forward. So Jason Spriggs is who we have with the Detroit Lions trading back and acquiring more picks with our number 1 overall pick, 16 overall, round 1. And that's who we like for the Detroit Lions. As we move into the second round, we're not going to try to predict picks we get or anything like that. With the 46th pick in the second round, we have selected for the Detroit Lions Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi State. And this kind of helps you guys understand why we chose Spriggs with the possibility of Detroit trading down. But if they're stuck and some of their key guys they believe are worthy of the 16th pick aren't there and they draft Jason Spriggs, drafting Chris Jones round 2, defensive tackle, 46th overall, Mississippi State, would be a huge get. He's probably the best defensive tackle in the draft. And he probably has the most upside of any defensive tackle in this draft. He's rising up draft boards, very productive player, very high ceiling player. And that's saying a lot where he ranks right now, considering the talent in this draft. Jones fits the theme the Lions are going to attack in this draft is versatility. Jason Spriggs gives us versatility because he gives us the option to move over to the right side, then transition to the left side if Riley Reef's not back. Chris Jones gives us that versatility also because he can play odd man fronts, he can play even man fronts, he can play the 3-tech, he can play the 5-tech, he can play such a variety of different positions. He can play a little defensive end for you, he can play a little inside nose tackle for you, he can play a little 2-gap for you, he can play a little 1-gap for you. He can do so many different things and do them very well. Extremely dangerous on the defensive side of the ball. Jones fits perfectly for what the Detroit Lions want. They want a disruptive defensive tackle in the middle. And he possesses that power, tremendous power, speed, lateral quickness. His fast twitch is amazing. He's very twitchy, and he's probably the most explosive defensive tackle off the ball. Him and Sheldon Rankins are probably equal, but he's 6'6", 310. Sheldon Rankins, 6 foot, 300. And his body, Jones that is, has more room to grow than Sheldon Rankins. I like the versatility Sheldon Rankins brings, but for our money, drafting Jason Spriggs in round 1, especially if they're able to acquire picks and still get that right tackle the Lions so desperately need, and then being able to slip into the second round and pulling tremendous value and getting a position of need, the defensive tackle position, which is going to be such a versatile position for the Detroit Lions in years to come, because the Detroit Lions are going to run 3-4 defense one week, 6 defensive backs one week. They're going to look a lot like the New England Patriots in the fact that they're going to run a matchup per opponent scheme per week. Scheme every week depending on opponent. That's how the Detroit Lions are going to be built. And that's what they need. They need versatile guys. I think the Detroit Lions are looking for versatile guys. I don't think they're looking for someone that can do one thing very well. I think they're looking, especially on the defensive side of the ball, for guys that do multiple things very well. I think they will value that higher than a guy they'll say that's really good at rushing the passer. Or you could take the guy that's pretty good at rushing the passer, but he's pretty good at playing the run, and he's pretty good at dropping back into pass coverage. I think they will select that guy over the guy that's just a specialist in one area every time, because I believe the theme of the Detroit Lions and the theme of the Detroit Lions in the future is going to be versatility. Offensive versatility and defensive versatility in their players. And Chris Jones, defensive tackle Mississippi, gives the Detroit Lions that versatility they need on the defensive side of the ball, especially with aging Haloti Ngata, to be able to come in and take over that role. I believe is more important than taking the defensive tackle round 1 and then hoping that an offensive tackle falls to you round 2, considering that next year Reef and Ngata could be gone. And like it or not, like we said, Riley Reef was one of the best tackles in football last year. But with round 2, we like Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi State, to the Detroit Lions. On to round 3. This has been a player that we have beat the table for. He's moved up in our mock draft every week, and I believe he's been in every mock draft but one, but he was mentioned in there as other options for the Detroit Lions. At the end of all of our mock drafts and every profile we write, at the bottom in red it says options for the Lions. And we give you another player we believe the Detroit Lions could be interested in if the player we are projecting for the Detroit Lions in that position is gone. And the player we have loved and we have coveted throughout this draft process, and a player that also offers versatility, again, the theme of Straight Lions talk for the Detroit Lions, and we believe the theme of the Detroit Lions in the future is versatility, versatility, versatility. And this player in round 3 is the comp pick for Ndamukong Suh going to the Miami Dolphins. We believe at the 95th pick, round 3 for the Detroit Lions, we believe the Detroit Lions should select Sean Davis, safety / cornerback, University of Maryland. Like we said before, Sean Davis is a player we've loved. We've moved him up. We had him in round 5 in our first mock draft, I believe, or maybe round 6, because that's where he was projected. And we moved him up all the way to the 3rd round pick for the Detroit Lions. And I don't think the Lions could go wrong. The versatility he offers the Detroit Lions, especially what they want to do on the defensive side of the ball, and especially the situation the Detroit Lions are in again with this position for the Detroit Lions. And remember, Bob Quinn has signed most of his free agents besides Marvin Jones to 1- and 2-year deals. Raphael Bush, 1-year deal. Jonathan Badamosi, 2-year deals. More of a special teams player. Trayvon Wilson, 1-year deal. So next year, this position's still going to have to be ironed out. And we believe we figured out the methodology for the Detroit Lions by drafting Sean Davis to take over as the safety for the Detroit Lions. A lot of draft places have him ranked as a cornerback, NFL Network does, a lot of other places do. We see him more as a safety. But the great thing about Sean Davis is he possesses the ability to play both the safety position and the cornerback position. He's big enough, fast enough, and athletic enough to play the safety position in today's game, a position that's changed over the years. Taking over for James Ahedebo, a position, and Isa Caduce, who left for Miami, both those guys are gone. He will take over that position, we believe, for the Detroit Lions if they were to select Sean Davis, safety / cornerback, University of Maryland, with the third-round pick, 95th overall, the comp pick for Ndamukong Suh. Sean Davis offers, like we said before, the versatility for the scheme the Detroit Lions want to run. And he also gives you the flexibility to play the free safety position if Quinn were cut next year, because he is due $7 million next year on an expiring contract, and he is reaching the age that the New England Patriots usually cut players and do not extend players. 29. Remember this. 29 years old is when the New England Patriots, when a contract is up, they say, we will offer you this. If you don't like it and you can get something else somewhere else, you can go ahead and take it, but we are not offering more than this, and it will not be a long-term deal. So Glover Quinn, could possibly not be a Detroit Lion in 2017. But focusing on 2016, drafting Sean Davis is great insurance for Raphael Bush possibly not returning, trying to sign a big-time free agent in free agency next year. He gives you the versatility to sign one safety if we have to, not two. Because Sean Davis, I believe, is a safety. What does he offer versatility-wise? Well, he's a tremendous hitter, highly intelligent. Something the Lions covet is intelligence. Speaks 2 languages. Been a team captain his whole time at Maryland. He is a massive, big-time hitter in the secondary. Not afraid to stick his nose in there against the run. Plays the run equally as well as he plays the pass. He just has a lot of great attributes that can be utilized for the Detroit Lions going forward. He's big enough he can cover tight ends running over the middle, but he's athletic enough he can cover the receiver on the outside when asked. He can cover the slot receiver. He can play down in the box against the run on running plays. He just offers the Detroit Lions a lot of defensive versatility, that the Detroit Lions will be looking for in a position that is changing and evolving in the NFL. We don't want these big-time Jeremy Cash type safeties for the Detroit Lions. Jeremy Cash, the player we want the Detroit Lions to stay away from. We do not like Jeremy Cash. We don't believe he fits in today's NFL. I believe you're getting a slower version of Louis Delmas and Jeremy Cash. And I hope the Detroit Lions stay away from that. Sean Davis, on the other hand, is very athletic. Now, he had some problems in Maryland with some coverage and stuff like that, but Maryland moved him all around, play to play, time to time. The Detroit Lions have the opportunity to bring him in and bring him along slowly and put him in positions to win immediately. Put him in situations he does well. Put him in situations he can succeed at. He's a great special teams player also. Something the Detroit Lions have coveted immensely in free agency is signing special teams players to play other positions for the Detroit Lions. The Lions are going to ask players to be in certain roles and to accept those roles and to, when they get the opportunity to, on the field, to excel at those roles. Remember Bill Belichick, do your job. You guys want to watch something that how the Detroit Lions are going to look here in the next 5 years? Watch Bill Belichick do your job. You can find it on YouTube. It's a great watch. It gives you goosebumps when you watch it and some of the methodologies the New England Patriots use. Now, back to Sean Davis. Like I said, a lot of versatility, great player. He will help revolutionize the cornerback position for the Detroit Lions and help revolutionize the safety position for the Detroit Lions and give them a lot of options on defense, like we've said. He's just a great pick. Athletic, big. He can cover he can cover tight ends. He can cover running backs out of the backfield. A lot of versatility. Lot of talent there for Sean Davis and a lot of value in round 3 by drafting a player of Sean Davis's capabilities. And he also has the Randy Edsall connection. Randy Edsall was hired by Bob Quinn to be in charge of special projects for the Detroit Lions. He's in that Ernie Adams role, again, which can be found on Bill Belichick Do Your Job on YouTube. He's in that type of role where he is going to diagnose and give coaches and players every possible decision the opponent could, every possible option, let me rephrase this, every possible option that an opponent may throw at them in a particular game, a particular point in a game, in a particular situation in a game, he's going to break all those tendencies down and give those to the players, to the coaches. He's going to help Jim Caldwell along during the game. But Randy Edsall coached at the University of Maryland for 5 years. He was the head coach. He recruited Sean Davis. He knows him inside and out. And I believe that's going to be a huge factor for the Detroit Lions. That's why I believe the Detroit Lions will ultimately draft some Maryland players. I believe the Detroit Lions are going to draft Sean Davis. They looked at him extensively at the pro day. They met with him privately. He's flown in for visits. So you can expect the Detroit Lions to go after Sean Davis. I think he is going to be the player that is going to be focused on by the Detroit Lions, maybe in round 2. He's flying up draft boards, but we think he can be here at round 3. I think it'd be tremendous value for the Detroit Lions, having the Randy Edsall connection. We know this player. He's been well scouted. And the versatility alone he gives you. I keep saying that word, but it's a word that's going to be used a lot, and it's a word you're going to notice on the field for the Detroit Lions with players doing a lot of different things and a lot of different points during the game. So with round 3, we like Sean Davis, University of Maryland, for the Detroit Lions. So moving on to round 4 for the Detroit Lions, a position the Detroit Lions picking 111th in round 4. We like another Maryland Terp, Yannick Ndakwe, to be the pick for the Detroit Lions. He plays defensive end, outside linebacker, a position the Detroit Lions, again, allows flexibility because he can be a stand-up outside linebacker in a 3-4, and he can put his hand in the dirt on a 4-3 and be a disruptive pass rusher on the outside. He's good at drafting into coverage. He's 6'2", 252 pounds, more of a hybrid defensive end, offers, again, a lot of versatility for the Detroit Lions in their front 7 personnel. Ndakwe possesses great hands at the point of contact, light first step, high motor, good against the run, can play with his hands very well, plays with his hand in the dirt very well. He's more effective in space. He's a very good tackler in space, and he's very relentless with his pursuit of the quarterback or anyone with the ball in their hand. A lot of hustle. Another Randy Edsall connection for the Detroit Lions. Another player the Detroit Lions were really taking a look at the pro day and met with a lot during the pro day and coached up on the side at their pro day. They paid a lot of attention to Yannick Ndakwe, University of Maryland. So that's where we see the Detroit Lions going the first 4 rounds. We'll go ahead and review it real quick. We like Jason Spriggs, round 1 for the Detroit Lions, if they're able to trade back in the 22-26 area. And if they're not, and Sheldon Rankins is there, we'd like to see them take Sheldon Rankins with 16. But ultimately, I believe the pick is going to be Jason Spriggs or offensive tackle in general, possibly Ronnie Stanley if he slips. But more likely, I think it's going to be Jason Spriggs, offensive tackle, Indiana, first pick, 16th overall for the Detroit Lions. In round 2, we like what we presume is the best defensive tackle in this draft, possibly, if not the best. Number 2 is Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi State, with the 46th pick in round 2. We think the versatility, again, he offers, like Spriggs, like Sean Davis, like all these players, the versatility Jones offers the Detroit Lions with the multiple fronts they're going to run, the multiple looks they're going to give opponents in-game, week to week, whatever it's going to be, situationally, however it's going to happen for the Detroit Lions. Chris Jones gives the Detroit Lions those options to line him up in a multitude of different positions to make him and the Detroit Lions a very dangerous defense where defenses can't plan for one particular thing week to week, game to game, quarter to quarter, half to half. And having a guy like Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi, in the middle for the Detroit Lions the next 5 to 7 years would be a huge, huge opportunity for the Detroit Lions in round 2 and tremendous value. More tremendous value, round 3, Sean Davis. We just talked about him. We were like his versatility, that word again. just overall the way the game is changing. Like we said before, 60% of all defensive base packages now are nickel. Why? Because of the advent of the bubble screen, the short passes, the quick hitting passes over the middle, quick passes to the running back out of the backfield. That's the league now, getting the ball out of your hand quick, snap, 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 go, go, go. No huddle offenses, things like that. And having a player like Sean Davis, which allows you the versatility to play the safety, or play the tight end, play the slot receiver, play the wide receiver, play the running back out of the backfield, come down in the box and be a run stopper. Just a player you don't have to take off the field in certain situations, but can do a lot of different things. So in round 3, we like Sean Davis for the Detroit Lions with the comp pick of Ndamukong Suh. Round 4, like we talked about, we like Yannick Ngakoue, defensive end, outside linebacker, Maryland, round 4 for the Detroit Lions. So again, it's Jason Spriggs, Chris Jones, Sean Davis, and Yannick Ngakoue for the Detroit Lions. And that's who we think the Detroit Lions are getting. That's our first 4 rounds of this draft. If you guys have any questions about that, please let us know. You know where to find us at STR Lions Talk Podcast. We're on Vine, we're on Stitcher, we're on iTunes, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram. You can find us on a whole variety of different platforms. So please, tune in to our show. Give us a rating. We appreciate it. We had 3 or 4 last week alone. We want to make it 8 this week, so give us 8 ratings. So if anyone listening to this, please give us a rating. That was the first 4 rounds of our 4.0 mock draft. Next week, we will do the rest of it. The other 6 picks for the Detroit Lions next week. And next Monday, our mock draft will be released on Monday, the 18th. So you guys will have it in your hands. You can follow along when you're listening to the show. So we want to hear your opinion. Who do you like for the Detroit Lions? Who do you think the Detroit Lions should draft? What rounds? We want to hear it. So send us a little mock draft on Twitter at STR Lions Talk Podcast and what you think the Detroit Lions should do in the draft. You can send it to us there. You can also use the hashtag LionsProud to send that to. So please, use both of those avenues to find us. Use both those avenues to send us your mock draft. We want to hear your mock draft. We want to hear who you like. So send it to us at STR Lions Talk Podcast. And that's our show today. So we'll see you guys next week.